Thus, a country might possess a sizable rural population, but have an economic system in which the interests of the voters were predominantly related to their incomes, not to their occupations or location, and in such a country, the political system would be unlikely to include an important agrarian party. In multilingual countries, code mixing, the use of more than one variety in the same utterance or sentence, and code switching, the use of different languages or varieties between sentences, is common and natural. Despite its frequency, or perhaps because of it, some scholars and self-appointed guardians of linguistic morality view both code mixing and code switching as a sign of linguistic deficiency. Imagine living all your life as the only family on your street. Then, one morning, you open the front door and discover houses all around you. You see neighbors tending their gardens and children walking to school. Where did all the people come from? What if the answer turned out to be that they had always been there, you just hadn't seen them? The study of the relationship between feelings and literature is, at the moment, popular and blooming. The interest in this subject, it seems to me, is justified by the fact that literary discourse itself is designed to arousing and forming the feelings of the listeners and readers. A linguistic utterance is in itself a result of a complex process because it simultaneously fulfills several functions, and thus it blends, as it were, several structuring principles online. First of all, it is formed according to the language system in question, although it may of course offend against aspects of its grammaticality. Robert Shulkov spent more than 15 years studying the building blocks of quantum computers until, in 2015, he decided it was time to start constructing one. The physicist and his colleagues at Yale University began pitching their startup firm Quantum Circuits Incorporated to investors, hoping to persuade venture capitalists that the time was ripe to pour cash into a quantum computing company. Technica offers brainy, geeky coverage of technology and science, and how it intersects with our everyday lives, whether we want it to or not. The name, derived from the Latin for the art of technology, reflects a perspective and a voice that is not only steeped in an appreciation of science and tech innovation. The archaeology and history coverage is fascinating, and their crowdsourced atlas of the world's most unusual, sinister and magical spots, from an underwater prison in Estonia to a lake ringed with skeletons in India, will blow your mind. Chemistry World enjoys diving into nitty-gritty science, describing how chemical bonds and reactions enable researchers to study art, distill gin, create new materials and advance renewable energy. The site also offers advice to chemists, describing routes to professorship and how to break into the field as a woman or minority. The free market is extremely competitive, and companies are constantly trying to gain an edge over their rivals. Merchandising and brand image play a major role in attracting customers, but they often lead to overpackaging. This is a serious problem since most packaging these days are made of plastics which are not biodegradable. Some people blame the manufacturers for their blatant disregard, while others point the finger at consumers. The term supernova was coined in the 1930s by a memorably odd astrophysicist named Fritz Zwicky. Born in Bulgaria and raised in Switzerland, Zwicky came to the California Institute of Technology in the 1920s, and there as once distinguished himself by his abrasive personality and erratic talents. He didn't seem to be outstandingly bright, and many of his colleagues considered him little more than an irritating buffoon.
Studying abroad is a very popular option for students who come from a wealthy family. Most people believe that overseas experience provides a deeper understanding of cultures and develops communication skills. While this may be true, not all of these new experiences are useful for finding a job. Employers tend to value interpersonal skills and industry knowledge more than cultural background.
From the mid-1950s until 2009, an office in the United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense recorded and researched reports of UFO presently, over 10 years after the program finished. Many of those formerly classified files about UFO sightings will be made available to the public for the first time.
A female cat in Russia that lost each of the 4 of her paws to frostbite can walk, run and even trip stairs once more, on account of the veterinarians who supplanted her missing appendages with 3D printed prosthetics produced using titanium. The hardy gray feline, named Imka, missed in Russian, is about 4 years old. Green iguanas, iguana, are normal in southern Florida, yet they aren't local to the state and are perceived as an intrusive species, as per the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, FWC. Male iguanas may develop to be up to 5 feet, 1.5 meters, long, and can weigh up to 17 pounds, 8 kilograms, and females can lay up to 76 eggs one after another, the FWC says.
Two locations are legendary among UFO seekers. One is Roswell, New Mexico, where sightings of a so-called flying saucer electrified the town in 1947. The other is Area 51 near Groom Lake, Nevada, where the U.S. government has long maintained a secret base that some say hides UFO-related technology and experiments.
A set of preserved footprints suggests that ancient humans often went scrambling on the steep slopes of an active volcano, even in the aftermath of a major eruption. The volcano may have been an important site for them. The footprints can be found on the Ricamonfina volcano in southern Italy, which has been extinct for 50,000 years. Local people call them devil's trails, because only a supernatural being could walk such a dangerous path. The streets of Wuhan in Hubei province are eerily quiet. The city of 11 million people, the center of the coronavirus outbreak, has been locked down since 23 January, with all public transport, flights and trains suspended. Private vehicles are banned in the downtown area. Highways are shut so residents aren't able to leave the city. Dark energy is everywhere, and when we say everywhere, we mean everywhere. It suffuses every corner of the cosmos, absolutely dominating everything in it. It dictates how the universe behaves now and how it will end. What a pity, then, that we have no clue what it is. It exploded onto the scene in 1998, when two competing groups made the same observation of distant supernovae. The unique characteristic of online shopping environments is that they allow vendors to create retail interfaces with highly interactive features. One desirable form of interactivity from a consumer perspective is the implementation of sophisticated tools to assist shoppers in their purchase decisions by customizing the electronic shopping environment to their individual preferences. Once you've picked a general topic for your paper, you need to come up with a thesis. Your thesis is the main and focal point of your paper, and it's the position you'll take on your particular topic. Formulating a strong thesis is one of the most important things you need to do to ace your paper. The privacy of people who add their DNA to research databases may be vulnerable to hackers, who could exploit the information published in genome studies to identify an individual's genetic code. Genetics researchers are inadvertently publishing information that can theoretically be pieced together to identify someone's DNA held in a research or commercial database, say Daphne Ezer at the Alan Turing Institute in London and her colleagues. Yarn grown from human skin cells could be used to make implantable human textiles for tissue grafts or organ repair. We can sew pouches, create tubes, valves and perforated membranes, says Nicolas Leroux, who led the work at the French National Institute of Health and Medical Research in Bordeaux. With the yarn, any textile approach is feasible. Knitting, braiding, weaving, even crocheting. When you have a child with food allergies, the fear of a severe reaction is always there, says Emma Amascato. It's not just mealtimes, it's going to nursery, family events, soft play. It's not something you can ever take a day off from. She is frustrated that some children, such as hers, could perhaps have avoided developing their allergies at all. If you sail across 465 kilometers of shark-infested waters on this raft, with no support vessel and only Stone Age technology to hand, and a satellite phone for emergencies, a crew of 8 from the First Mariner's experimental archaeology project is preparing to do just that, setting sail from Rhode Island in Indonesia and heading across the Timor Sea for the north coast of eastern Australia. Walt Disney said about 28.6 million people had signed up for Disney Plus since it started in November. The on-demand video service, which costs $6.99 per month, is Disney's attempt to challenge industry leader Netflix, which has 170 million subscribers. Disney Plus now has almost as many subscribers as the firm's earlier on-demand streaming service Hulu, which was founded in 2007 and offers shows from U.S. television. Unlike the iconic Nazca lines, most of which are only visible from overhead, the older Paracas glyphs were laid down on hillsides, making them visible to villages below. The two cultures also pursued different artistic subjects. Nazca lines most often consist of lines or polygons, but many of the newfound Paracas figures depict humans. The current law, which enables employers to fire new staff within the first 90 days without giving a reason and without facing legal action for unfair dismissal, was introduced in 2009. Under the new law, the 90-day trial will remain as it is for businesses with fewer than 20 employees. Larger businesses will still be able to use the 90-day trial as a probationary period, but with greater protections for employees.
Children need to discover their own strengths and weaknesses in order to find fulfillment as adults in both work and play. Watching television does not lead to these discoveries, it only limits children's involvement in those real-life activities that might offer their abilities a genuine testing ground. And young children's need for fantasy is gratified far better by their own make-believe activities than by the adult-made fantasies they are offered on television. It was a horrifying death for the 39 Vietnamese nationals found in the back of a trailer in an industrial park in Essex in October last year. The story shone a light on the subterranean world of people smuggling and human trafficking, reports Kat McShane, specifically the thriving route between Vietnam and the UK. Ross Gerber, head of fund management firm Gerber Kawasaki and a long-term fan of Tesla, said his fund had sold some of its shares in the firm because its share price was moving around kind of crazily. But he expects the firm to continue to perform. Matthias Holwig, professor of operations management at the University of Oxford's said business school, said the latest share price boom felt more like gambling. Shadow banning is the act of partially blocking content so it doesn't reach the platform's entire community of users. It will not be obvious to the user that the creator's content is not being promoted. TikTok has traditionally shied away from political subjects, but Mr. Barman built a strong following of just under 1 million by performing and uploading 15-second skits on the theme of Hindu-Muslim unity at a time when many in India In the past few months, the social media platform, owned by China's ByteDance, has been called out for allegedly censoring so-called risky content. Most recently, it faced massive backlash in the US for blocking a teenager's account after she uploaded a video accusing China of putting Muslims into concentration camps. 15 million trees were felled by the Great Storm, which hit the south of England in 1987. But the remarkable Turner's Oak and Kew Gardens in London not only survived the storm, but also changed the way that trees are cared for around the world. Tony Kirkham, head of the Arboretum at Kew Gardens, has been telling Witness History about what he learned from the ancient oak. Such cross-protection is usually seen between two animals. But Gore studies the same sort of mutualism in microbes. He and his team demonstrated the first experimental example of that cross-protective relationship in drug-resistant microbes using two strains of antibiotic-resistant E. coli bacteria. One resistant to ampicillin, the other to chloramphenicol. The Ford company provides plenty of opportunities for its employees. It guarantees not only comfortable and appropriate working conditions, but also many other advantages. Therefore, becoming a part of the Ford Motor Company is always profitable and beneficial. Moreover, it is important to mention that Ford Motors provides its employees with effective and useful services and takes care of their well-being. Lincoln's apparently radical change of mind about his war power to emancipate slaves was caused by the escalating scope of war, which convinced him that any measure to weaken the Confederacy and strengthen the Union war effort was justifiable as a military necessity. Therefore, the working unions in modern society are not very important. They preserve their functions only in the underdeveloped countries. On the contrary, in the developed states, workers refuse to join the unions, preferring individual work. Thus, working unions cannot survive the assault of modern economic trends and slowly move to a complete decline. Their initial purposes have little to do with the hectic pace of modern life. You used to think that being green was a luxury for your company, but climate change has made you realize that you can no longer ignore it. The buzz is about becoming carbon neutral, but where do you start? Consider your drivers. Do you want to become carbon neutral for marketing reasons, for financial reasons, or to help save the planet? Have you ever pictured a world without light? Just think how much we rely on man-made light sources in our lives. Without engineers, we wouldn't be able to live the way we do. No streetlights, no TV, no computer display, no house lights. Engineers design and build all these things, and they also design, build and run the electricity systems that power all these light sources.